So last year, I think around the similar time actually, I caught up with Vishak Nair, and it was his first UK exclusive interview, and that was a very special one. And again, we've reunited for a very incredible film that's just come out called Chatha Pacha. It's a Malayalam film, which means do or die. And honestly, I think every time I see Vishak on screen, he just definitely seems to up the level each time. And yet again, even though he was playing the villain once again, but yet there was so many different layers that one can unlayer with that. So big welcome to you, Vishak, and thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Right. So, Vishak, look, uh, Chatta Pacha was a very great film. I really enjoyed it because it felt like, I mean, obviously not to kind of compare it, but it almost felt like Fight Club meets Dil Chahta Hai with a very strong Kochi flavor,
Yeah.
underground flavor. And I absolutely loved the way it was literally like a melting pot of so many different aspects of cinema. There's elements of sports that comes in, and there's coming of age, then there's also the action genre seeping in. Uh, when we decode it as a melting pot of so many different styles, for you as an actor to really kind of embody that style and that vision as well, especially given that it is, I believe, a first time director as well that's helmed it as well, and first time producers also, I believe. So
Yep.
a first of many sorts, how would you kind of like sort of explain all of these little strands, with the cinema aspect as well as the first timers as well?
So Adhvaith, the director, and I, we go back a little. We've known each other since 2020, and we were supposed to do a short film together, but that never happened. But we stayed in touch, and many years later, I think it was in 2022, 2023, that he reached out regarding Chatta Pacha. So by then, it wasn't, at that point, it wasn't like a very big film per se. It was big on paper, but the other pieces, the actors and the technicians and all hadn't come on board. Roshan was on board and Arjun was on board and Ishan was on board, definitely. But Mamoka at that point was definitely not, the first thing that popped into my mind because we didn't know. So when he, presented the story to me, instantly I was just like shocked and in so much respect about the guts to pull off a story like this in Fort Kochi, to root it in Malayalam and in Kerala and in the land and the people and the culture. I mean, that's not easy because we've all grown up on WWE, but to root it and to tell that story in a way that connects with audiences here in Kerala primarily. I think that required a lot of guts, and Advait, on a writing level, accomplished that. Like, and it was a very exciting prospect right from the get go. To like live out your childhood fantasies on screen and choke slam people and all of that. So as a film, the character was honestly second to me at that point because I really liked the film as a whole, and I just want to be, a part of it at that point because like when he told me like like a character sketch of Charian, it wasn't like a fully fleshed out character yet. It was just like this antagonist character that has to do so and so things, and they were in the process of rewrites. But even that was interesting because Advait was like, bro, I think we can jam and we can, come up with something new together. So that was interesting to develop a character from the ground up with the writer director of the film. So yeah, I mean, pieces fell together, and I feel, like blending genres like sports, like you said, the brotherhood drama aspect of it, the family drama aspect of it. It's emotionally strong, but yet it gives you that adrenaline pumping kick that you bought your tickets for. So, that's I think the double whammy that he did with that script. So I think that was the jumping off point, and even Shihan, our producer for that matter, was pitched just a deck, with a picture of a man doing a backflip, from one of the turnstiles, and he was sold on that. He's like, wow, okay, in Fort Kochi, this could actually, exist. And so yeah, a lot of guts and a lot of, I think, leaps of faith from all of them. So because it's not easy to like, think big and do something that's so, off the beaten path, even though it's an action film. So yeah, I think it's a lot of guts from all of them.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? There's so many different layers that I'm gonna go into for this one because, like I mentioned, there's so much to really decode and dissect as well. But I think Jerian for me was a very fascinating character. I think it is significantly different from the sort of antagonistic shades that we saw you do last year. There was almost like this very he was almost like a blend of like a pantomime Shakespearean villain, which at times very weirdly, and I can't quite put my finger on it or why, but reminded me of Langda Tyagi from Omkara for some reason. And I think there was so many, it was just, I think the way you played it, even when you're in the ring and you're having that fight, and the way you sort of do that little pose with with the way you're sitting there, and the idiosyncrasies here, character, it was just very interesting. And I would love to know, Vishak, actually, what was I guess for you, not an inspiration, but what was your technique as an actor in terms of embodying this character and adding those little nuances, which really sets this, antagonistic character really apart from what you have done so far?
So I think you are the first person who's mentioned that word in an interview, pantomime, because so back in the day when I used to do theater back in Chennai, we used to do the Christmas pantomime every year, and it was the
Mm,
biggest show of the city, right? And I played baddie there, I mean the bad guy there as well. And I played Mojo Jojo in one of those editions, and then I played the Dane. So I think pantomime is exactly where it is and what it is. It's in a lot of ways. Embodying a character that is not quite normal yet entertaining and believable. I think that's the fine balance that pantomime theater brings about. And with Cherian, I think that was the goal. He's definitely not like a, I don't know, level-headed dude, but how far can we push that? How far can we push his narcissism and his need for attention and validation was the bigger question. Advait, when he pitched it to me, he told me, bro, there's no rules with this character. You're free to do whatever you want to. So he just had a couple of things in the script, wherein he wanted that pookie belt, the one that spins. He wanted certain, elements of his character, like his daddy issues, for example, that were already in the script, and a lot of other things that gave it a good grounding. But on top of that, we could color the character with whatever colors we wanted to color with. And so yeah, we went through a lot of, like, as far as look is concerned, we went through a lot of referencing with anime as a reference, and to pick up those kind of outlandish villain roles, villain characters that, like, he should instantly just pop out of the frame was what our costume designer probably thought of. But yeah, so it was a lot of ideas like that, pantomime being one of them, the second being anime, and third being the fact that we all know a guy like that. We know a guy who's like, the guy who owns the cricket bat and cricket ball, and you just play with him because he's wealthy and not because he's a nice guy,
mm.
and he has his air about him. So I think those things were the things that we held on to while we built this character from the ground up. And there was a lot of room for improv on set, Anuj, and that was the most fun thing about performing as Cherian from Yon Chatta Pacha, because Advait again and Anand, our DOP, are fantastic DOP. He's done Premam, he's done Bougainvillea, he's done a whole bunch of amazing
Love
films.
Bougainvillea.
Bhishma Parvam, yeah. So so they gave me that space to, like, and the other actors, of course, to kind of improv my way through it. And again, in pantomime theater, you do a lot of improv with the audience and with your co-actors as you perform as well. So I think a lot of those things, I think, circle back to embodying characters who are open to, like, push the boundary a little bit, with regards to what is okay, what might be a little off. And Advait had a very clear sense of what is not okay, and within those bounds, I could play with that character as much as I want to on set. So it was a very fun experience more than anything else.
Wow. I mean, it's really interesting because obviously Kupi, the character that really broke
Mm.
the glass ceiling for you, that was your debut film, I believe, right? Anandam. So that again, that was like a comedic character. And
Yeah.
obviously now that you've kind of veering into this territory of darkness, I feel like in a way, Cherian is embodying what you've been doing over,
Yeah,
the
in a
course
lot
of
of ways.
your career,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's and there was a lot of depth to that character as well, Anuj. I mean, the sense, he's funny not because he tries to be funny. He's funny because he's so full of himself. And why is he so full of himself? Because he probably didn't get a hug from his dad as a kid.
Yeah.
He just wants that validation. So, the comedy, all the more believable and fun, but at the same time, you like this guy because you know where that hurt is coming from. And the villainism, of course. I mean, even that probably stems from the same place, but ultimately it's like a very relatable thing, like insecurity or daddy issues or whatever you might want to call it. But yeah, in a lot of ways, comedy and call it horror if you want, like the the villainism aspect of things. I think both of them follow like a similar rhythm also. I think a lot of great filmmakers have said that as well. And as an actor also, I think there's a certain level of, pushing the boundaries, and maybe like, we have a word called meter, where it's like in Hindi you say your sur,
So
right? Sur pakad liya isne is what most, like, actors say about, so you can push the sur a little more, or up the tempo just a little more and get away with it when you play such characters. So Cherry was like the perfect opportunity to do that.
do you know what? This is a very interesting point that you've made, and I would love to kind of elaborate on this aspect, and I will come back to Chatha Pacha just shortly. But I think the fact that the characters you have played, Vishak, a lot of them seem to be deprived of something.
Mm.
They do stem the final end of the character and how the character comes across, whether it is comedy, whether it is, an edgy thriller.
Mm.
They do have this very strong emotional backdrop. I mean, even if we take Emergency, for example, what we saw in the film at least, he kind of it was like he's wanting that validation. A lot of these characters are wanting validation.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to you dealing with such characters, because it in a way is a bit of a psychological study, right? You're kind of sort of understanding their mind space, their emotional graph. What has that kind of taught you as a person, actually, perhaps, in terms of understanding their perspective, but then also making you accept your life situation and circumstances as well?
I think it's worked both ways, in the sense, like, when I started understanding myself better as a human being, through, therapy, or through spirituality, or through just reading and exploring myself as an individual, what it means to be me. Um, I got a better grasp of, how to tap onto these things in other people or other characters, as a matter of fact, because ultimately it's an active, understanding why a certain person is a certain way, and then trying to, empathize with that, and trying to put yourself in that person's shoes and see, how things go. That's basically what, we try to do on screen as well. I don't think it's left, like, the reversed impact, where like a character is like very dark and broken, and that's, like, hurt a person, a side of me, to an extent where, it's not, healthy. But I feel the opposite is true, wherein, understanding, the for lack of a better word, and at the risk of sounding very hoity-toity, the human condition better, understanding what it means to be one of us, at least on a personal level. I think that's helped me understand, what it means to be all of these other damaged people as well, because
Hmm.
we're all, who's complete, who's not, asking for validation, who's not hurt on some level. All of us are. Some of us run away from it, some of us accept it, some of us mask it, whatever it may be, but all of us are, damaged, or broken in some little way, right? So, um, I don't know. I think I'm, also hoping to do more such characters in the future, wherein I get to do this, because there was a phase in my career where, I wasn't able to find that in my characters. Characters were painted with the same color, probably. There's no shades of blue and green with the red. There's no mixing and matching. There's no depth to it, like you said, right? So, I'm very grateful. I'm very glad that I'm getting to do these characters right now, first and foremost. And I think it was just a matter of preparation meets timing, honestly, because I think it's not, every day that you get special characters, and thankfully and luckily I was, emotionally ready to handle those characters. Life experience, Anuj. I think a lot happens through life experience. We went through a lot in the last decade as a people, right? We had a lot. So yeah, I think that's what it is.
No, beautifully said. But wanted to pick your brains a bit more. You mentioned about, you were getting characters that were of the same paint. They were kind of, they were kind of, you could see the similarities between the sort
Yeah.
of work that was coming your way. Why do you think that was the case? And when do you think was the moment where you decided to put your foot down and kind of make that decision that no, this is not what I want to do because that's what the system wants me to do. Because I think it's very hard, isn't it, as an actor, especially when you're kind of emerging and you're still trying to establish yourself fully, to kind of have that sense of security that no, I want to do work that deeply satisfies me as an artist rather than just doing with what chalta hai, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it was because, see, honestly, I feel a lot of it comes from overconfidence as well. because I mean, I knew I had an engineering degree in hand from a pretty good college. I knew I had work experience for a couple of years. So I knew if nothing else, and if all else fails, I can always go back and work at a, mechanic somewhere. I could do something, to make a living,
Hmm.
which would allow me to live a comfortable lifestyle. That blanket, that safety net was definitely there, which allowed me, I think, the courage to understand that, I quit all of that, and I gave up on all of that to pursue something that I love, right? So if I'm not getting that kick from it, then maybe I should step back and reevaluate and see, how to probably change people's perception of me, or to maybe taking a break really helps sometimes. It just like helps. It's a hard reset. It's a refresh on people's perception of you and their memory of you, and then you can start it again. I mean, it could be difficult to get it going again, but again, that's, I would say, divine providence or luck or whatever you want to call it. I was able to get a lot of auditions around that time, and that's how Tejas and Emergency and all of the Hindi projects happened. So yeah, I think it was a confluence of a lot of factors, but I think ultimately at the end of it, at the root of it was that dissatisfaction with not getting that kind of creative high from doing that work,
Hmm.
and I feel it took some time for those roles to find me, and yes, I was constantly trying, and I was auditioning left, right, and center, and trying to run a company, a production house, and all of that in the time being, but you know I, in a lot of ways the universe has to conspire as well,
Yeah.
and I genuinely believe that you get what you deserve when you're ready for it. And so looking back, I would probably do it the same way. No regrets, because I learned a lot of valuable lessons in that time.
Beautiful. Yeah. No, and I think that's what's really, I think, coming out in your art as well. I think you can see that sense of experience. I think that's coming out, which is why you're probably able to uh enact it with so much confidence and poise as well, because you've had that sense of assurance as well within you. And I think that's
Yeah.
what really makes a difference, is having that balance. Uh, Coming back to Chatta Pacha, though, I absolutely loved. I mean, costume wrestling, like you mentioned, WWE is something that we've all grown up watching. I think I remember literally when Eddie Guerrero passed away, it was like such a big
Yeah.
news for us kids. It
Hulk
was like,
Hogan passed away when we were shooting, and that was hard.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was difficult. Like, I mean, honestly, so even though I've not been an avid fan, but I used to watch it because of my cousins and SmackDown, for example, we used to play on the PlayStation. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of fond memories that we've had with with WWE. And what I love here is that it's very, like I mentioned earlier, it's very raw. It's very underground, and at the same time, I love the color palette. Like, there's a lot of reds and oranges, and it's brown also. There's like this very edgy kind of a feel that it has in the undergrounds, and I think the action is raw, but that rawness is topped up with the camera work, which is constantly moving, keeping you engaged, which is a lot more heightened than how you would see of WWE, for example,
Mhm.
which usually is very steady. The camera work isn't as busy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think these are like technical aspects that I would love to get into, and also about the action choreography as well, because I think there is a sense of rawness, and I think the sort of camaraderie that you've had with all three of the actors in the film, and they've done such a fabulous job as well. Uh, it would be nice to sort of understand and get a knowledge of what it's like to do a raw sort of action sequence. Is it as bloody and as aggressive as we see it on screen?
It's a lot of work, I'll tell you that, because we started work in terms of physical preparation sometime around Feb, March, and that ran on till November. We were doing our, action training and mobility training, and then, gym and strength training after that. So I think the first task for everybody involved is make sure that, the actors are able to do this safely,
Hmm.
because if one of us, gets hurt, God forbid, that would mean shutting down production for X number of days, or, it's a huge risk. So I think we were very lucky on this film to get that time, because on most films you don't get that much time to really work on it, especially physically. But I think that paid off, because it kind of freed the action choreographer and the cinematographer to get a little more adventurous and creative with their choreography and shots, and the way the storytelling was weaved into it as well. So yeah, I think it's not just about the choreography of the action. I think it's also about the drama, the relationships that are told through the action. It's also the fact, like you said, that since there are 4 or 5 major action set pieces in the film, each of them had to look a certain way different from the previous one. The first fight that you see inside the ring, the ring is or the place is just barely set up. When you go to the second one, it's a little better. And then through the montage, it reaches its peak level, and then in the climax, they go around doing what they do. But that, for to achieve that, I don't think it would have been possible with a team which didn't have the same kind of caliber that this team has. And it's Anand, our DOP, Advait, of course, our director, Sanoop, our writer, Sunil, our art director, the music done by Mujib. I think, and he did the score, and of course, Shankar Sangoy did the music. I think
Mm.
all of these things put together made it, fun. It's not just one department, or we just played our part as actors at the end of the day, because it required all of these people to come together to really make those things very interesting as visuals. A lot of people in Kerala have been messaging us and telling us, and through our DMs or whatever, that they really felt like they were in the ring. They could feel the sweat, they could really feel the impact, and that is, I think, what you want to deliver for it to be a Paisa Vasool action film.
Mm.
We knew that when once we get into the ring, once the story moves into the ring, we're good, because
Yeah.
by the end of it, yeah, we were like, in there, it's a whole different thing. So yeah, that's where the money was spent, that's where the focus was put, to make sure that every rupee and every bit of our sweat and tears goes into the frame to make it as awesome as possible. Yeah, so hats off to Kalai Master. Kalai Master was an absolute legend, our stunt choreographer on this one. um, he used to send us like a syllabus, of moves and roles and whatnot that you had to learn before arriving on set. So we had all of 5, 6 months to learn that. And then a couple of days before shoot, he just ran us through a couple of these moves, almost like a, quick test. And then on the day of the shoot, he would get there, he would take in the environment, he'd soak it all in, he'd have a chat with the director and the DOP. And then the choreography basically happened on the go, which is his style of working, which is a
Wow.
very, very cool, fun style of working, because by then you're ready. It's like you're there for your board exams, you've prepared everything, chapter 1 to 50, and whatever, like, give me at it. So it's like, okay, this move and that move and then this move, and just like put them together, and voila. So I think it was a lot of preparation from a lot of the actors, of course, and Fly Master's choreography, but the technical team just knocked it out of the park. I think it's there where the true unsung superhero magic of the film lies, and all of them put together did an amazing job. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned superhero because honestly, when I watched the film, and there was this one action sequence that happens in a bazaar where there's like an MLA that's in the Jeep from
Yeah.
because I watched this film some time back,
Yeah. Yeah.
like kind of trying to recollect everything. Um that whole sequence again, the slow-mo again, it seems like a classic Malayalam song that plays in the background. Um it kind of reminded me of this sequence in Mard Ko Dar Nahi Hota, Vasan Bala's film, where there's Nakrewali being playing in the background, slow
Yeah.
mo mein action chalti hai. I kind of like the way it's in a way kind of adapted to this new kind of kick-ass, the kick-ass films, that style of action,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that culture references that are peppered in as well. But also, it almost seems like a love letter to Kochi in many
Mhm.
ways. But at the same time, it's also kind of showcasing a slight reality that also lingers, beneath the humor and all of that. Because essentially, it's a film about loss of innocence, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that in a way that fight is symbolizing the fight that these boys have been having in all their lives, even including your character.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's been wrestling literally in
Yeah.
his entire life, right? So it's quite interesting that that's all kind of come about as well. Yeah.
Really cool that you caught on to all of that, man. I mean, that's really cool. No, but yeah, that's exactly what they were going for. Where, I think, each fight, like I said earlier, has a sense of drama to it, because there is, a through line in terms of the emotional story being told through those fights, and that's why the climax is, the climax, because it's also the emotional high point of all of these characters. And it's a story that's been running for maybe 20, 25 years, ever since they were kids.
Mm,
In that movie theater, one fine day when the fireworks went off in that car, and that's where the whole story starts.
mm,
So I think, yeah, that's what they were going for in terms of, like, it has to have an emotional core. I don't think the audiences, especially in Kerala, are easy to entertain. They are a very discerning audience, and they're very picky with the movies that they watch, and very critical with their opinions of the films that they consume. And we had to make sure that it hit all the right notes, and just like skim over the stuff so that you can get to the really good part in the middle.
Yeah.
So I think that fine balance was something that came about very well. And with regards to like the superhero treatment and everything, I feel, I think that's the right word, because if you think of James Gunn, if you think of Waititi, if you think of Marvel as a whole,
Scott.
there's a lot of bathos in it, right? Even in the darkest of moments, there's a bit of humor, and
Yeah.
I think that's what Advait and Sanoop have done everywhere. Like in the climax, right before, Mamuka enters, this big man, he just falls down. And before Mamuka enters, I walk up to him and I'm like, bro, are you okay? There's that Unikuta moment over there where, in so many theaters that landed,
Yeah.
and that humor breaks that, that I don't know, tension in a way that makes the audience still believe that, okay, I'm watching a popcorn film. This isn't an intellectual, mood film. It is, a made for the theaters to be hooted and screamed and, enjoyed with the gang, and yeah, I think it was a fine balance, and I think they did it beautifully well. Sanoop, our writer, like you said, because it's a love letter to Kochi, he needs like special mention, because Advait, our writer, he comes with like a Western way of thinking and presenting the story, but Sanoop really rooted it, especially the slang, which is very, Fort Kochi and very specific to that area of Kerala. Getting that right for all of the characters, I think Sanoop deserves like a big round of applause for that as well.
No, I think so, definitely. Like I think it was really I think it was just so intriguing to sort of see all of those aspects come together, because I think it just felt like a melting pot of so many different genres, like I mentioned. And I think that really does
Yeah.
come across. And I think also what I really love about this film is that, the sort of production houses that have come together for distributing the film in different parts of not just India, but globally as well. I mean, of course, you've got Wayfarer Films, um, and quite ironically, Mammootty sir is in the film as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Wayfarer Films again, I think they've done such a great job with Loka last year, and
Yeah.
uh, I'm loving the fact that they're having these very youth-centric stories, but then also having a very creative spin on them, which I think is very interesting. You've got Mythri movie makers from Telugu, and obviously their films again are often quite earthy, but also
Mm.
offering that sense of, popcorn entertainment at the same time. Dharma Productions in Hindi, which again, any Dharma film has to have its emotional core at its center. And
Yeah.
I think that is definitely part of the DNA of the production house. And it's just interesting how all these, I mean, obviously, then I think in Tamil as well, you've got PVR, Inox as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
Pictures.
Yeah.
So that was also there. So I love the fact that every production house that has come on board for this film, it almost feels like this film is like it's like an all-rounder. It's like an aloo in a sabzi. It just goes with anything, you know? Like it just seems to have like, just adapted so well with the ethos of all these studios. If you could maybe shed some light, whatever you can, about, the different studios coming on board, and what gave them the green light to really, support
I
this
think,
film.
I think it was again guts and pardon my French, but balls to do what Shihan did. Because Shihan, being a first-time producer, he was just so sold on the idea, so confident that he had something good on his hands, that he literally went door to door and asked these people if they would like, to be a part of the of the fun, because I mean, he was so damn confident about the whole thing.
Hmm.
And later on, when we had like a little bit of footage, a business cut put together, all of them kind of instantly said yes to it, and because I think all of them saw the potential in what a story like this could mean for the people. We're all like mostly millennials. The current
Yeah.
cinema going audience are primarily Gen Z and millennial,
Hmm.
and to a large extent, even Gen Zs are heavily influenced by WWE. Not heavily, but even we have fans that are Gen Zs as well. So it's a
Hmm.
large demographic of young people who are cinema going people that this film directly caters to. And it's got everything that you want in a film when you think of a WWE film. And I think it really appeals to that nostalgia when it came to all of the people, at all of these production houses, and their understanding of what this film could mean for the wider audience as a whole. So yeah, credit to Shehan. I think he did a fantastic job in just, doing what most people would think to be impossible, and really going that extra mile and getting these people on board.
I think what I would love to know as well, Vishak, I think people have always kind of appreciated you as an actor, but I think this film it is a very different role for you. I just can't quite explain it, but it is just very special. For you as well personally, have you felt like a difference? I think in terms of the reactions that have poured in for you, and in terms of maybe the industry standing as well, and how the dynamics have been impacted at all for you.
I think so. I think this is right up there with like the top three most, popular or beloved characters of mine as far as the audience reception has audience reception is concerned. But I think what again I hoped would happen with this film was um, so people know me as Kuppy from Anandam. Some people in Hindi know me as Sanjay Gandhi. And a lot of people then in Malayalam got to know me as Christy Savio, right? So as far as the Malayali audience is concerned, you've got Kuppy and you've got Christy, and they're like, okay, wow, okay, they didn't expect that from that dude, was the reaction that I got when I did Christy. But when this happened, I think that sense of genuine satisfaction I had with regards to like, oh my God, people have accepted this character, not because of only the shock value that came with, seeing Kuppy as a bad guy, but also
Mm.
the fact that, oh my God, this guy's doing a different kind of bad guy. And I'm liking this too, which is very heartwarming because that was pretty much exactly what I hoped to achieve with Cherry and on a personal level as an actor. To like somehow surprise the audience and tell the audience that you can expect like weird stuff from my characters or from my choices, and it won't. I can guarantee you one thing, that you will be surprised, or I'll try my best to surprise you. About the choices I make as an actor. So yeah, I think nowadays, the tag, like in Kerala, everyone knew me as Kuppy.
Mm.
And now when I like walk around, people know me more than, not now, but then till a few weeks ago, people know me more as Kuppy than Vishak. But after Cherryans come out, like, one of the things that I said in all the interviews in Kerala was that I hope Kuppy dies with this. And, like you say in the UK, Kuppy's dead, long live Kuppy kind of thing. So if we were like, it's that film, and that's exactly what myself and my family, my wife, my friends, everyone hoped would happen with this film. And yeah, so I think now they've, I think, started to see or accept the fact that, okay, Vishak as an actor is capable of doing variety of these interesting characters, and yeah, he's not too bad. So I think that's where I'm at right now, and I'm only hoping to do things that continue to surprise them in the future, and that's my number one objective right now, to just like, do characters that kind of always go against the grain with respect to what the audience is expecting from me.
Right. And I want to circle back to that earlier conversation that we had about you getting offered the same sort of roles.
Hmm,
But I think you know what happens especially in comedy and being a villain,
hmm,
especially in acting, because there's such extreme roles and because it's so noticeable and
hmm.
because they get so easily etched into the psyche of the audience
Yeah,
that it becomes difficult often for it often basically I feel like an actor becomes susceptible to being typecast and to be stereotyped into only playing that sort of a
sure.
character. And it's happened before as well.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
So I think, Vishak, has there been a bit of a fear for you as well? I think within you want to do these parts, which, like you said, psychologically layered, but they don't have to be villains, right? Per se,
Hmm,
of course.
hmm, hmm.
But is there a bit of a fear in you that about you getting typecast into a certain role as well? I would love to know, what your mind space is at with that as well.
Sure, yeah. I mean, so a lot of the greatest actors that I personally look up to have done some really, really good villain roles as well. I mean, that's one thing that I really enjoy about them as actors as well. Be it Mamuka, be it Jack Nicholson, be it any of these gentlemen, be it Al Pacino. And another thing, like you said, is that they've played very complex gray characters as well. Ideally, that's the zone that I'd love to be playing at. But the beauty that comes with playing a villain character is that, as compared to comedy, you
Mm.
have a lot of space in the screenplay itself. I'm not talking about just screen time. I'm talking about what you can do with that character. You're not a token character if written well. you know. So I think even if there is that risk of being stereotyped or typecast, I feel the variety of characters that I could get to do as a, as a tag villain actor would be much better than, as a comedic actor, or at least, in the current milieu of things. Um, which is also why I want to try and pick up a few scripts and, if possible, support writer directors, or like, collaborate with writer directors who are willing to think of me in a different way as well. They may not be as big as the other, films that I might do, but I think those films are the ones where I can show different sides of me as an actor also, right?
Sure.
I think a major risk that happened a long time ago was this film called Exit, and I play a cannibal in that film,
Oh,
and and that's, yeah, I mean, that's as villain as they come, right? But it allowed me to play a cannibal. Like, that's pretty cool. You don't get to do that every day, right? So
yeah,
I think,
bloody hope not.
yeah. And yeah, so I'm just hoping to follow the fun, for now. I mean, of course, there is a bit of like perception management and career planning and all of that that goes into it as well. But I feel with villain characters, you can, find characters that are more fun to do than the same kind of, because in comedy, or the way comedic characters are written, I think places them in a certain number of categories. He's like the clown, or he's the second fiddle, or he's the, there are certain categories of, or he's the gesture. But with villains, they're a lot more complex. Alan Rickman, another amazing legendary actor who
Oh,
started off as an
love him.
amazing villain. There's so many of them, but they always manage to find amazing characters in those villains. You can't compare Jack Nicholson from The Shining to Jack Nicholson in, let's say, The Departed.
Anger
Those are
management. Do you know what I
crime
mean?
management. Yeah, I mean, these are all, not good guys, but they've got such different colors to them. And if I can do that as an actor, and if I can find those roles as an actor, yeah, that's a win situation for me.
No, absolutely. No, and I think it'll be good to maybe shed some light about what's next for you, I think, coming up in terms of projects.
So there are these two very interesting projects in Malayalam that I'm pretty kicked about, that probably will take some, effort and time to materialize. But these are projects like the ones I told you earlier, where, these are the kind of films that I really want to see, or the kind of films that I really want to, pay money to be a part of also, if I could. So in any which way, to be a part of it would be fun, is the only prerogative there. And there's one where, it's a crime action coming of age, drama of sorts, and there's another one which is a science fiction multiversal rom-com, so genres like that, which are not like, your everyday films, but a little high concept, or a little off the beaten path. And also films like these, which I could probably position myself as a leading man, or like a solo lead kind of a thing. I mean, I think that's important as well, to try and take a few bets in that way. But other than those ones that are, in I don't know, in the oven, ready to go, are projects like the one I'm doing in Canada, which is called they haven't announced the name yet, but it's a very fun. You've seen Priyadarshana films, right? Priyadarshana
Yeah, yeah,
sir's
yeah,
film.
of course, of
So
course.
it's like this motley crew of characters, and it's like this crazy situation, and it's,
Oh,
it's
I love
based
it.
on a wedding, and it's colorful and fun. Very interesting, eccentric character in that as well. But the one after that I'm very excited to do, or very excited about, is this release that I have in June,
Oh,
which is, fingers crossed, gonna show me in a different way, hopefully. Touch wood. It's very sweet, yet very ambitious and action oriented, crime drama called Akka, which,
oh,
yeah, it's in Hindi, and that's the one
Radhika
that
Apte is one, right?
that's the one, yeah. Radhika and
Oh,
Kirti, and yeah, yeah. So very nice role in that one, and got to do a little bit of stuff that I haven't done before. And that was a lot of fun. So I think that's super exciting for me, because it's a Hindi show based in South India. I'm
mm,
sure you've seen like a bit of the glimpse or whatever that they released earlier last year.
yeah.
But yeah, so that was a very interesting world to be a part of, and I think that's something that the audience are not ready for, because it's like really, really cool in the way they've brought in that, that old school gangster thing with like a South Indian milieu, and it's based in a different setting altogether. So I
Mm.
think, yeah, that's a very interesting thing, and I think that's a character that allows me to explore like a different a non-villain area, which is something that I'm excited to see how the audience will respond to. So yeah, that's what's up, and just like hoping for one of those little small projects that I'm working on to pick up steam really quick, because those are some fantastic scripts, and when you come across those scripts and you just want to make that film in one way or the other. So yeah, fingers crossed.
No, it sounds exciting, and I think it's interesting though that you mentioned about genre and coming of age, especially because I feel like what's happened, especially from the onset of Avesham, I feel like we've been seeing a lot of Malayalam action comedy, youth-centric, or if not your action comedy, but a lot of youth-centric stories really
Yeah,
emerging.
yeah.
Even just if we look recently, Baby Girl, Nivin Pauli's film, right? That is a very youth-centric story, you know. I mean, it's kind of serious, but at the same time, it's quite emotional as well. It's a drama and a thriller as well at the same time. And it's interesting how we're seeing that. Like obviously, like I mentioned, Loka last year as well. I mean, Officer on Duty, the film that you were a part of, it's literally about you centric. Do you think this is a sign of changing and evolving times in Malayalam cinema? Or do you think that it's just a trend that people have noticed that seems to be striking a chord with the audience? So they're trying to continue tugging at that chord?
I think it's a bit of both, because I think it's also a sign of the changing consumer behavior trends in Malayalam cinema. I think, when I first came into cinema 10 years back, the target audience was always the family audience. Like, you needed the family audience to really lift the film from that, initial noise to making it a super hit. Back in the day. But back then, films used to run for 100 days in theaters, and that
Mm,
used to be a huge thing, and we don't do that anymore because of OTT and whatnot. Right. So now, again, because of OTT, the families would like to sit at home and just watch it on their TV at their own leisure. The mothers would like to do it while they cook, the fathers after a day of work, however, and the whole movie going experience, I think, has become a lot more concentrated around the young people. Most of the first, few days, 4 or 5 days of a film coming out, at least the first couple of days of the film coming out, the first people who go and watch it are definitely the younger demographic, maybe a 20 to a 40, that kind of a demographic, and those are the people who get the word of mouth out, sooner than anybody, right? So I think that is the primary reason. I also feel that a lot of younger filmmakers are coming into the industry to fill that gap of younger voices being needed from Malayalam. We had a wave where we broke through like a very long period of only commercial popcorn masala films, and with films like Chapa Kurish and Traffic, that things really changed, and that was the first, like, a new wave of Malayalam cinema. A new generation of Malayalam cinema started then, and there's this churning just keeps happening, I think, of ideas, and the zeitgeist changing, and newer voices coming into the mix. I think Malayalam cinema is one of the industries in the world where, if not the world, in India for sure, where we have a large percentage of films made every year made by first time directors. And I think that's a beautiful metric to have. And it's a beautiful industry to be a part of because of that, because it's an industry that gives a chance to, no matter what your background is, you could come here and make a film and tell your story, which may not be the scale, I mean, which may not be possible with the bigger industries because of their scale. So yeah, it's a very nice, evolving time. I also feel there's a lot of corporate interest, which is always a good thing. I mean, more money means bigger films or better films, ideally. But I hope that culture of putting all that money into the frame and into the film doesn't disappear. I hope that culture of making a film as though you're going to war as a family doesn't disappear. And I hope that Malayalam cinema, like, what always challenges its audience, and the audience always challenges Malayalam cinema going forward.
No, and on that optimistic note, definitely looking forward to seeing, of course, what the future holds for Malayalam cinema, and of course your amazing lineup as well. It sounds very exciting, and
Thank you.
very keen to see how you sort of evolve as an artist with this one, and what new benchmarks that we'll get to see from you as well. So, but huge congratulations on Chatha
Thank
Pacha. It was a lovely film. I really enjoyed it actually. After a long time, I laughed so much, and I had
you.
such a great time. It was honestly, I think this it kind of reminded us of what cinema really is about, and the language is honestly not even you don't even you actually forget actually after a while that you're watching a film that is not in the Hindi language, because obviously for me I understand
Yeah.
Hindi and Gujarati very fluently because those are the languages that I speak and understand. But when you watch films that are not in that language, you completely forget, because honestly, when they say language is not a barrier, it's true. In cinema, there is no barrier of a language, I don't think so.
Especially when you watch it in a packed theater. You
Oh,
know, I
brilliant.
think like so as part of promotions here in Kerala, we go on theater visits where we walk into the
Good.
theater at the end of the show and we, meet the crowd and everything. And there are certain theaters which can still seat 1,200 people, and to see your film in a packed theater of 1,200 people, that's a different feeling altogether. And I think that's what cinema is all about at its core. As human beings, we like to listen to stories around a campfire, and that's essentially what cinema is giving being a part of a story as a group. And I think that's why cinema has no boundaries, also, not just because of anything else, but the theater communal viewing experience. I think that can't be replaced. It shouldn't be replaced going forward as well.
And even though I've watched WWE, but if you were to tell me, do you want to watch a documentary or a film just about wrestling, would I agree to watch it? Probably
Maybe
not.
not. Maybe not. Yeah.
Probably not, right? And the reason why films about wrestling or boxing or any fighting sport has worked is due to its emotional core and the
Yeah.
way the treatment is done. I mean, look at Dangal, for example, look at Sultan, the way these
Rocky
films have been.
or whatever. Yeah.
Rocky, right? You watch any of these movies, the reason why it works is because there is that whole idea of underdog spirit that's used in the films, and the way the treatment is done is exceptional. But honestly, Vishak, I could go on and on and on. And honestly, like it's always so special. And I think the insights that you share and your mind space is always so balanced and you're always so with it. And I think the good thing about you as an artist is that you know what you want. You're still open to, being impromptu and making those decisions last minute as well, which is great. I think that's where your theatre sort of backdrop comes into it as well a little bit. And no, wishing you all the very best, and thank you so much for joining me on Filmy Show Me. It's always so great to have you.
Thank you, Anuj. This is so much fun. It's always nice to like catch up with you, and I hope we get to do this more often because
Yeah,
it's not very often that you get to have such deep, meaningful conversations in interviews as well. So I feel it's like a two-way street when I'm talking to you, and that's always a lot of fun. So thank you for having me, and we'll talk soon.
absolutely. We will indeed.